It took around 25 years to build the group of outlaws known as the Linde Gang, but only mere months to form their collapse. One by one, every member would either perish, leave, or be exiled as things began to fall apart. The mental decline of their leader, Dutch van der Linde, influenced by primary antagonist Micah Bell, most certainly had a heavy hand in this undoing. As the years would pass, the remaining survivors of this once close family would meet their end, one way or another. But there was one who outlived them all. Welcome to the video. You're listening to Phil of Filbee Gaming, and today we're taking a look into the life of the youngest member of the Linde Gang, Jack Marston. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and share with friends and family, or anyone you may feel would enjoy content such as this. Follow me over on Instagram if you wish, which you can find both on screen and linked in a video description. And please be aware, as warned at the start of the video, there will be major spoilers ahead for both Red Dead Redemption and its prequel, Red Dead Redemption 2. With that being said, let's get into what we came here to see. Innocent, the life of Jack Marston. The first time players are introduced to Jack is in the final chapter of the 2010 title, Red Dead Redemption, as his father returns home following a journey that took him across both the United States and Mexico. Jack is a shy boy who'd rather bury his head in a book than go off on adventures. John was somewhat absent at times throughout his childhood. Because of this, Jack never quite learned how to become a man. He feels inferior to his father and wishes to earn his respect. Throughout his early years, Jack would endure most things that most children would never, or even should, experience. But in order to tell this story, we must start at the beginning. Jack Marston was born in 1895 to John Marston and Abigail Roberts. He was raised on the road, travelling with the Linde Gang. Living with outlaws, he never attended any schools and couldn't settle down anywhere to make real friends, as the gang was always on the move. The only people in his life were criminals. When he was very young, his father John would leave the gang for around a full year. Many speculate he did this because he couldn't handle the responsibility of being a father, claiming that Jack was not his child. This is something we'll come back to later in the video. With his father disappearing, the rest of the Linde Gang would step up to aid the raising of Jack, primarily Hosea Matthews. Hosea Matthews was considered, along with Dutch van der Linde, to be the old guard. These two were the founding members of the posse, later recruiting a young Arthur Morgan, followed by an even younger John Marston. It was in Hosea's nature to nurture young children who lacked a form of parental guidance. He would teach Jack how to read, just as he did with his father. Upon John rejoining the gang months later, Hosea would continuously attempt to convince him to be more active in his son's life, all to no avail. John just didn't seem interested. This would cause constant bickerings with Abigail. Abigail Roberts at one point would ask Arthur Morgan to spend some time with Jack, claiming, and rightly so at that point, that his father was useless. It was during this fishing trip that Jack would first meet the antagonist of the original Red Dead Redemption, Edgar Ross. In 1899, Edgar Ross worked for the Pinkerton Detective Agency, whose duties were to crack down on outlaws as the Wild West became more civilized. Although at this time he acts as a secondary to the primary antagonist of Red Dead Redemption 2, Agent Andrew Milton. During this interaction, Agent Ross tells a very young Jack something that would stay with him years later.
Good day, Mr. Morgan. Goodbye.
Enjoy your fishing, kid, while you still can.
Although the gang would always protect Jack, later in 1899 he would be taken by the order of one Catherine Braithwaite and sent to Saint-Denis to live with mobster Angelo Bronte. The gang showed their true love for the boy during this time as they stormed the Braithwaite mansion in search of Jack. It was around this time that John finally began to realise how much he loved his son. Upon his rescue and returning Jack to his mother, John is visibly hurt when she thanks Dutch and Arthur instead of him. This is when he realises he needs to make a change. Although Abigail was always trying to get John to be more active in Jack's life, it seems that at this point she had just given up on him. Her feelings would later change after John's arrest. She begs Arthur and Sadie to rescue him from the Sisika Penitentiary, where he's on trial awaiting a hanging. By the time John is rescued, the Linde Gang is already falling apart. Some members have left and others have been killed. Dutch van der Linde has seemingly lost his mind, and everyone knows it. Abigail knows that a life with this band of outlaws is no longer as safe for Jack as once thought, and it was time for them to make themselves scarce. Things don't go quite to plan, as Abigail is captured by the Pinkerton Detective Agency. Some speculate that prior to this, Abigail was working alongside the Pinkertons to ensure her and Jack's safety. This is a theory I've covered before in a separate video, which I'll leave as the end screen to this and link it in the video description. Following her rescue and the death of protagonist Arthur Morgan, we move on over into the epilogue of the game. Jumping from 1899 to 1907, Jack Marston is now around 12 years old. But before we get into their time at Pronghorn Ranch, let's discuss what we know about the 8 years in between. At some point after leaving the Linde Gang, John and Abigail had a second child. This is confirmed years later by John during a conversation with Bonnie McFarlane.
Miss McFarlane, I'm married. I have a son. I had a daughter, but she died. Years before that, I rode in the gang.
There's no other information on the daughter, not even a name. Whether their second child was actually born, or whether Abigail miscarried during pregnancy, is open for speculation. Many believe that it was the latter, and that Abigail simply felt that the child she was carrying was a girl. Regardless, this was still a tragedy for the Marston family. Jack never speaks of this, nor Abigail, maybe because the memories are too painful to relive, or possibly if Abigail miscarried, Jack was never even made aware of the pregnancy. At one point, the family headed to the Yukon in the northern country of Canada to participate in the ongoing gold rush there, joined by an estimated 100,000 others. Obviously, they didn't quite strike it rich, so the trio headed back to the United States. Later on in the years, his father John had an altercation of some sort, leading to him killing a man somewhere near Roanoke Ridge, although the details on this are limited. Abigail is trying to get her family away from their previous lives, but it seems John keeps returning to his old ways. We see this frequented as they find themselves working at Pronghorn. Although John tries to help his son have a more stable life, he himself can't seem to escape violence, whether it be defending their new home from a neighbouring rival or the repercussion for his actions at Roanoke. Finally having enough of John's decisions, Abigail takes Jack, feeling that they once again are not safe. As we enter the final part of Red Dead Redemption 2, John has somewhat cleaned up his act and has even bought himself a ranch at Beecher's Hope, all with the intention of proving to Abigail that he can provide a decent and honest life for both her and Jack. The mother and son arrive at Beecher's Hope after receiving a letter from John, and with them is the newest addition to the family, a Labrador Retriever by the name of Rufus, who acted as a protector to herself and Jack during their time away from John. John attempts to establish a better relationship with his son by spending more time with him, like a fishing trip similar to the one his Uncle Arthur took him on years prior. Jack seems reluctant to form a relationship with his father. They do, however, form a better bond over time, and after the marriage between Abigail and John, it seems that the family is finally living the life that they dreamed of for so many years. That is until Edgar Ross makes an appearance once more, thus beginning the story of Red Dead Redemption. The year is 1911, and the Pinkerton Detective Agency is no more. Edgar Ross has now aligned himself with the Bureau of Investigation as a director. After the death of Micah Bell in 1907, whilst John is briefly away from the ranch, Ross and Fordman kidnap both Abigail and young Jack, who's now around the age of 15 or 16. Their intentions are to hold the pair hostage and use John to either capture or kill the last of the Linde Gang, Bill Williamson, Javier Escuela, and lastly, their former mentor and leader, Dutch Van der Linde himself. Edgar Ross plans to put an end to the gang once and for all. The task given takes John all across the southern United States and part of northern Mexico. After the death of all three outlaws, Edgar Ross keeps good on his word and releases Abigail and Jack. The family are reunited once more. Jack is now even more reluctant to spend time with John, feeling that he would only run off again. His adolescence isn't allowing him to think clearly, not understanding that his father, this time at least, didn't have a choice in the matter. Despite this reluctance and Jack's anger, the pair do spend time together, as we see when John teaches his son how to herd cattle and hunt and skin animals to make a profit. Although mistakes were made along the way, the family of Jack, Abigail, John, and even Uncle plan to live out the rest of their days at Beecher's Hope, living a normal rancher's life. Edgar Ross has other ideas. As John gives Jack compliments regarding his tool-making skills, in a tender moment, Uncle bellows to the father. Edgar Ross, along with many members of the Bureau of Investigation, US Marshals, and the United States Army, storm the lands of Beecher's Hope. Their aim to kill the last two remaining members of the Linde Gang, John and Uncle. Uncle dies on the porch of his home, much to Jack's horror. Jack then joins his father in fending off the attackers before he and his mother safely make it to the barn. This is the last scene that the Marston family are all together.
Now listen, Jack, Gnarly, get on this horse. Get out of here. Go find a place to hide.
You're coming with us, Paul.
I'll catch up. You keep riding and don't look back. And don't be worried about me, you hear? Now get going.
You stay out of trouble, John.
Ain't no trouble, Abigail. Ain't no trouble. I love you.
I love you.
Now go! Get!
Jack can do nothing but comfort his mother. After burying his father and uncle, then 3 years later, his mother, Jack is left alone in the world. He's around 19 years of age at this time. He seeks revenge on the now retired Edgar Ross and tracks him for one final showdown. The former director is found hunting ducks by a river's edge. This is a callback to Jack's fishing trip with Arthur some 15 years prior, where in both situations Edgar Ross was brandishing a shotgun. Jack Marston isn't that scared little boy anymore.
My name is Jack Marston. You knew my father.
I see. I remember your father.
I've come for you, Ross.
And you, boy, have sure shit found.
You killed my father.
Your father killed himself with the life he lived.
You killed it. I saw you.
You keep saying that.
You sent him to do your dirty work. Then you shot him like a dog.
And I'll shoot you like one too, you little piece of trash. Now get out of here before I kill you as well!
I ain't going nowhere, old man.
After the man falls, Jack looks down at his pistol, contemplating whether he's becoming an outlaw just like his father. Many wonder what became of Jack Marston following the death of both of his parents. Jack doesn't want to live the life of a gunslinger, as indicated after killing Edgar Ross, so it's very plausible that he chose a different path. He expressed to his father during a ride to McFarland's ranch that he wishes to become a government man one day, or maybe even a politician. Of course, John disagrees with this choice, given the history he himself has had with the law. One theory is that he became a US Marshal, possibly hoping to make some changes to the government through that avenue. This is indicated by one of the unlockable outfits in the game that's only available after completing the Last Enemy Shall Be Destroyed mission, making it only possible to be acquired by Jack. Others believe he took on a more administrative role in the government, given his academic abilities. Another theory is that he continued the life of a gunslinger, following in his father's footsteps. This is aided by the fact that his mother, Abigail, who was always trying to set them on the straight and narrow, has passed. He had no parental guidance from his late teens. The strongest and most probable outcome stems from his love of reading. In one of Rockstar's other titles, Grand Theft Auto V, there's a reference in the home of protagonist Franklin Clinton that definitely provides some answers. Upon a shelf, there's a book titled Red Dead, and the author is named as one J. Marston. This indicates that Jack became an author. There's also an NPC at the bike rental stall in Vespucci Beach that's wearing a red t-shirt with John Marston's likeness printed on the front. The Red Dead book was possibly the life story of his father and the Linde Gang. He never forgot about his roots. This is shown by his standard cowboy outfit in Red Dead Redemption. He wears a beige jacket very closely resembling that of Arthur Morgan's and sports his facial hair similar to Javier Escuela. The red bandana around his neck is noticeably alike to John's, and he also dons his father's feathered cattleman hat. Due to losing those close to him at such a young age, his attitude towards the general population is friendly but very somber. Jack was battling depression. He may have combated this by going back to his original love of writing. Whatever he chose to do in his later years, he remains as the last surviving member of the Linde Gang. If you enjoyed today's video, you all know what to do. Please consider supporting the channel via my Patreon page, which you'll find linked below in the video description. If you wish to get in touch and let me know either your thoughts on the video or have any suggestions on what other content you'd like covered, you can find me over on Instagram. That's at Filbee Gaming. Thank you all for watching. You've been listening to Phil, and I'll see you in the next one.